are informal events that provide avenues for exchange of information, views, policy development, and new alternative stakeholders with parties. And we're really happy to have all of you here. Thank you for attending our online event. And as you can see, there is a chat session, so that could be used as Q&A. If you have any questions, please feel free to post in it there. And all the whole event will be recorded. And if you encounter any technical questions, please let us know. And I'll give the floor to Alfonso. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to this webinar at side event from Minamata Convention. So today I will share my presentation on the screen right now. Yes, okay. Today we will talk about the first temporary mercury storage unit for the government of Colombia. This project was supported by the Department of State of the United States and also was supported in Colombia by the Ministry of Environment. As a peer, we are the moderator for this session. So today we have 5 speakers, Jane Denison from the Department of State. Then I will talk about regarding the implementation of the storage unit in Colombia more in detail. Also, we have an intervention for Andrea Corso for the Ministry of Environment of Colombia, Daniel Gomez from the National Attorney on the Environmental Agrarian Affairs of Colombia, and Victor Alfonso Rey for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Colombia as well. So you can see the big supporting a commitment of the government in this project for all time. So first, Jane Denison. Jane Denison is official Mercury officer. Sorry, we'll talk. She's the Mercury program officer from the Department of State for the last 7 years, I think, or more. And she's leading more than 12 projects around the world, specifically in small scale mining. So she will do all the presentation today. Jane, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alfonso. And thank you, UNEP, for this opportunity to share some of my perspectives on the project that Alfonso introduced. Next slide, please. So we started this whole process in 2018 with the grant to Pure Earth, which was specifically to look at the various aspects of recovering mercury from artisanal and small-scale gold mining, tailings, and looking at feasibility, including the economics of recovering both the mercury and the gold, and also at the regulatory frameworks. But it didn't take us long to realize that any success in this project was going to lead to another problem where miners, so the problem basically was, where were miners going to be able to take their recovered mercury? So this set us along the chain of events towards the second project, where we engaged with the US EPA to work with the Colombian government and Pure Earth to look at issues around those interim storage facilities. Next slide, please. So from my perspective, one of the largest and more difficult obstacles for this project was just for the Colombian government to figure out which ministry should take responsibility for the system of storage, interim storage. And so, as I mentioned on the slide, the Army, the National Police, the Environment Ministry, or Fiscalia were all considered. But the whole issue of where to store the mercury really became a bit of a hot potato. There seemed to be concerns regarding the security of the facility, which makes sense, and the potential diversion of the mercury back to the ASGM sector, which we would want to avoid. Also concerns about the sources of funding for operating the facility, especially if there's no end date for how long the mercury would need to be stored there. Finding the right site was also a concern, and making sure that there was proper training. Next slide, please. But despite all this, the Colombian government and in conjunction with Pure Earth and the US EPA, who was Chun Ping Chow, working, they were able to develop a schematic for the facility and also standard operating procedures. Also importantly, a separate project from this project was happening between the Ambiente and UNDP, where they piloted the stabilization of elemental mercury, doing this with Innova, which is a private company in Cali. Further than this, they also worked out a process to take that stabilized mercury to a hazardous materials landfill operated by Veolia. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. Yeah, thanks. I just, and also finally, towards the end of the project, 5-year project, the Inspector General's office stepped in and identified a laboratory in Bucaramanga that was going to be able to host the facility. Next slide, please. Interestingly enough, Bucaramanga is also on the route for illegal mercury trade. So mercury that's coming into Colombia from Venezuela can get to Bucaramanga and then go throughout the rest of Colombia. Next slide, please. So this underscores that there are additional sources of mercury besides that's recovered from the tailings, and that would be confiscated mercury that the law enforcement agencies need to find ways to deal with. In addition, as the Minamata Convention works its way through, the phasing out of medical devices, et cetera, will also be a source of mercury that will need to be stored. Next slide, please. Some additional challenges that perhaps you might want to be aware of is that although the storage facility had a capacity of 300 liters of liquid, because mercury is so very dense, it can only really hold about 20 liters of mercury. Secondly, there are the obvious financial and human resources. There will need to be some operating funding to continue. And finally, one of the additional challenges is that the Bucaramanga facility is only able to accept mercury from its own department. So we ran into an issue where Fiscalia was looking to store 45 kilograms of mercury originating from Antioquia, but we were unable to use this particular facility. Next slide, please. That looks like the previous slide. Thank you. So just passing on some of what I think are lessons learned that might benefit other countries. And this is really underscoring the importance of clarifying the governmental authorities so each ministry is clear on what its responsibilities are in the whole cycle of mercury interim storage and disposal. Training is also extremely important. And then finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about the regulations that need to be in place to incentivize the recovery and storage of mercury. First of all, from the miner's perspective, the miner really needs to know exactly what the process is. when he or she recovers the mercury from the contaminated tailings, what are they supposed to do with it? How are they supposed to store it? How, transportation, and where should it go for interim storage? In addition, from the miner's perspective, it's important to make sure that the recovering the mercury from the tailings is encouraged. And right now, this work of recovering the mercury is in kind of a shady area for regulations because of it's illegal to use mercury in ASGM. So that really needs to be very clear so that the miners aren't subject to legal liability for doing something that's actually positive. But beyond that, it's also important to incentivize the miners to recover that mercury. So, for example, perhaps there could be tax breaks to the miners. Um, but it's also important to make sure that any kind of incentive for recovering the mercury is tied to the gold that is also recovered. And the reason that I say this is that uh, we wouldn't want to give tax breaks for mercury coming in that's from external sources. So, in other words, we wouldn't want to create a market for the mercury. And then finally, it's as to address one of the challenges, it really is important to develop a revenue stream to cover the costs of the interim storage and final disposal. And one thought on that is to use a percentage of the tax received from miners working on those tailings. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the Bucaramanga facility was unable to accept the 45 kilograms of mercury, but it did retrieve a small flask of mercury from an office that had been sitting on top of a desk for about 2 years. So this is a small step, but it's very important. And in the course of retrieving that flask, the mercury vapor was measured, and it was at about 5 micrograms per cubic meter, which is above the EPA guideline for this office settings at 3 micrograms per cubic meter. So again, a small action, but it's very important to protect these office workers and others from exposure to the mercury vapor. Next slide, please. And here are some photos. You'll probably see some additional photos later on of the laboratory where the facility is located. Next slide, please. I just want to acknowledge those that did this really important work. Shunping Chow, formerly of the US EPA, of course, our partners, Pure Earth, and the US Embassy Bogota that also supported this work. And very importantly, the many people in the Colombian government that contributed to this process. Next slide. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Look forward to hearing the rest of the speakers.
Hi, Alfonso. We think you haven't unmuted yourself.
Okay, yes. Jane, thank you so much for your presentation. I think it's very interesting to see how we work the life 5 year together and try to implement many things, especially the temporary Mercury unit. Now I will do the presentation. I will introduce myself. My name is Alfonso Rodriguez. I am the technical manager and the Global Mercury strategy coordinator of Pure Earth. So rather than talking about the technical specification of the Mercury storage unit that many of you can know or is typical to know, is more to describe how important is this process with the government and how we figure out all the process and the protocol with the government specifically. So the idea is to try to show you what is the process. This is for the whole project, all the pillars, but one specific activity that we work was try to figure out how this project can help to the government to manage the mercury at the end of the process. That's one of the biggest problems. So I want to put you in context what is happening in Colombia in the mercury right now. We have the ban of the use of mercury for mining activities from June 2018. So no mining activities can use mercury from that date. Also, for June this year, 2023, is banned for other activities. It means that the mercury is banned for use in Colombia at all in all levels. However, we've analyzed in December 2022 the characterization of 140 tailings when we could identify high concentration of mercury, high concentration of gold, and other minerals. And also, the most recent information for this month in October 2023, just yesterday, under our program, Imperial TSIP Toxic Site Investigation Program, we have been identified 86 contaminated sites with mercury. What it means? It means that the mercury is still using illegally in Colombia, and there is still an illegal market. So you can see what is the problem, the current problem in Colombia. You can find a lot of tailings, tons of tailings around the country, and you can see that the spread of the use of mercury around the country is massive. So we still with the problem. So what is the intention of these activities that we did? Try to articulate, because it's not articulate, a national process between government agencies to manage the mercury in all aspects, especially in the final disposal. So what we have to start this pilot, because it's a pilot that we implement. First, we have the law of mercury from 2013 that banned the mercury, as just mentioned before. The last year, we have a new law regarding with mining tailings management. It means that we can reprocess the tailings to clean up and to extract the minerals that are inside the tailings again. So that's a concept of circular economy right now. We have the hazardous waste regulation from 2005, and also we have the transport of hazardous substance regulation from 2002. But it's not specifically nothing talking about mercury at all in that regulation. So what is missing? It's missing that there is no definition of the responsibility for mercury management in Colombia for a specific agency. You can find the local or regional environmental authority, you can find the prosecutor office as well, but no one is the real responsibility for the management of mercury in the country. Also, there is no specific protocol how to manage, handle, transport, and dispose of this mercury in Colombia. And the most important for these activities is not a local or storage units for put this mercury inside. We don't have any location, we don't have a capacity, we don't have the time, we don't know how long we need to store that mercury. That's the problem that we identified at the beginning. And we try to figure out with all this information how to design a strategy and try to put the implementation of the pilot project. So we try to identify the gaps and create the process. And the first step that we did was many consultation meetings with government agencies. In only one room, we can put together the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Mining, the mining associations, the regional and local environmental authorities, the research institutes like universities, also the prosecutor office and the army and the police. You can see that all these government agencies and institutions has different scopes of the use of mercury, a scope of what is the responsibility of mercury as well, and try to figure out all the ideas in only one meeting and several meetings was not easy. Was very hard because all the agencies have all the responsibilities, and we need to be sure what is the right way to do. But we did. For that meetings, we identify what are the most common Mercury connection sources regarding with the last part of the process. One is the voluntary surrender for miners that can bring the mercury to for example, a local environmental authority. The other source is the coming from the laboratory waste when research institutes or the universities stop or finish a specific project with mercury, and there is mercury substance that is treated as a waste. So that's other part as a source. The other is now we have the new law to reprocess tailings, so we need a process to clean up the tailings. And in that process to clean up the tailings, we will recover mercury as well. So that is another source of where the mercury coming from to the process. And the most important at the moment is the seizure or confiscation by military operation in Colombia by this illegal action. And sometimes we have no people involved or people involved. What it means, what is the difference? The difference is when are people involved in the process, the prosecutor office need the mercury as evidence. So they need to storage the mercury for a long time during the legal process at the end of the process. We can maybe take a sample to storage the evidence, but still one small part of mercury that we need to storage for a long time. That's a big challenge there. Then we need to create specific protocols to use the personal protective equipment, the health and safety protocol as well. We need to find what kind of containers we need to store the mercury in the storage unit. Also, what kind of vehicles we need. And the most important, what is the format report that the official need to fill to send this mercury to the next step. That's the one kind of the protocol that we try to figure out in this point. The first step was to identify the hierarchy or the order of the process. So I will put an example. When a military action goes to the field, basically it's a mining area, and the mining area is responsible for the mayor of the municipality. So this person is the first recipient or the first responsible to take the mercury with them and try to change of custody format filling for the process. But the question is for the major, okay, I get the mercury, and then what can I do with that? We don't have any storage unit. So we need a storage unit. That's one of the requirements. And also how quick we to reduce the time, because there is a public security, because the mercury is a legal action with the mayor. So he needs to reduce the time of storage. So it will be the most reduced time to send to a storage unit. And also at the end, identify the final government agency that who will be responsible to manage the final disposal of this process. Finally, also we found another gaps that we need to work, still working that. So we don't have a central information system for Colombia regarding with mercury. It means that we don't have a certainty how much or what is the amount of mercury that we already are collected with different institutions or agencies, and we don't know or we don't have what is the long or short term or storage at the moment. So we need to figure out, or we figure out that project with this pilot, and it's not national budget inside the government to put this disposal of mercury. So someone should pay for that. And other limitation that we found is that it's only one licensed final disposal provider in Colombia that could do the final disposal of mercury. The common process that they do is stabilization with sulfur and putting a landfill at the end of the process. But it's only one provider in Colombia for all country that can do that. So there is the opportunity to other companies try to do that as well. So we did the pilot implementation. The idea was to find a place where to put this storage unit. With the idea was a government agency with access and very good security. We select a mining area. We already select a facility that complies with the technical requirements, with easy transportation and health and safety protocol and easy monitoring process. So we work with the attorney generals. Maybe Daniel will talk later about the National Mercury Work Group that we tried to do at the end of last year. But regarding that meeting, we could find an agreement with a local environmental authority in Santander, more specifically in the Bucaramanga city. So we could do an agreement with that local environmental authority because they are construing or build a new lab that you can see. This new lab is just 6 months ago new, so it's the perfect place to put the storage unit for Mercury in that mining area. So we did the agreement, we trained the people there, so we did all, and we find the storage units as a technical specification. So taking some technical specification for the storage unit, we need to comply with the ISO 17000 and standard that is the lab complied at the moment. The range of temperature is between 2 and 12 centigrade degree. They manage. We have a data logger inside the equipment. We have external structure very hard as well. We provide proper containers to put the mercury inside this storage unit, and we estimate the capacity. That's one key point here. We at the moment the total capacity that we have is 240 kilograms of mercury. That is more or less 80 liters of mercury that we can storage. And the agreement at the moment is storage for 1 year. We already pay for the final disposal of this mercury for the October 2024. So we have for now 1 year to storage the mercury that we can find in that area. And at the end of that year, we can send it to this provider and do the final disposal with the stabilization. We already get. So the idea with this pilot is try to identify if the capacity is right, or we need to increase the capacity, or maybe we need to reduce. And the most important is there is another mining areas where they maybe need another storage unit to put in implementation as well. So that's another key point that we need to define at the end of the project, at the end of the pilot, 1 year from now. This is the protocol for the local environmental authority that we need to follow when they receive the mercury. First, they need to a mercury reception. They need to do a registration form, sorry, and then with this registration form, we create a chain of custody. And the idea is this the chain of custody follow for all the next steps of the other government agencies that can put something in the process, are relevant in the process. We do the health and safety protocol. We provide the all personal protective equipment for them, gloves, glasses, boots, everything we put with them. And also we do the verification of the containers. We provide the containers to put the mercury inside the storage units. The idea is to avoid at least the most amount of handling of mercury when they receive the mercury. And also we put the storage and monitoring process for a year. The idea is after this year, the local environmental authority can follow the process. And at the end, we also put the process to delivery this mercury to the final disposal to this provider because it's another city, it's in Cali. So for Bucaramanga, that is where is a storage unit. To Cali is around by land transportation around 1.5 day transportation. So it's too long for us and very expensive transportation. So the idea is to reduce that cost as well. The document or all documents, I will share with you the link that you can download and see all the documents of the project as well. We did the training for the official. We certified the workshop under the OSHA requirements, talking about health and safety as well. We designed the internal protocol for manage the mercury there, so they know how to manage that now. More than 20 officials received the certification, and also the occupational risks of training. And the most important also, they receive all the process and the training to manage the emergency procedures. In sometimes if the mercury had generated a spill or getting a spill works on emergency, they can respond to that emergency as well. And the monitoring process with the John Pin from EPA up here, we put the service of the Hermes device that you can see in the photo. And the Hermes device is an occupational and health monitoring to measure the vapor of mercury in the work environment. So they can measure day by day what is the mercury vapor that it exists inside the facilities in order to take actions in some point there are any problem there. And what are the key achievements and commitments? Maybe some of them just Jane mentioned. The idea, this was the first pilot talking about storage units of mercury in Colombia that can be used for the government agencies, very important for us. 1 year for the process, so we need to find what happened after that year. The idea is that the local environmental authority can follow the process, and also the transportation at the end of that year is a process we need to check. And we need to replicate this pilot in other mining areas in Colombia because it's very important for us that every single environmental authority, or local or regional environmental authority, have the opportunity to storage the mercury in the process. And I know this is not only one problem from Colombia. We know very close Peru, very close Mexico, and other countries as Indonesia and Ghana that have a lot of problems with mercury management. So we can take this a case study with the government and try to do the same with similar countries with similar problems. Finally, on the whole project, we can see a lot of documents that you can download for this link. I will share this in chat in a moment. And you can download all the documents and see what is the process to recover mercury, clean the tailings, and also the storage of mercury unit that we will upload in the following weeks to finalize, because we need to sign one agreement more in the next week. So we will put all the documents there. And there is some important result that we get from the project. Especially, it was not only the storage unit mercury, it was also 8 technical documents for the government. We processed more than 300 tons of tailings to recover mercury as well. And we trained more than 280 miners in manage the tailings and manage the mercury in Colombia. And also we get more than 63 government agency, national agencies involved in this process. So it's a big process. I want to say thanks to Attorney Office because it was a big result that we did. And finally, that's my presentation. All the questions that you have, please on the chat, or we have maybe some minutes at the end of this webinar to answer some of your questions. And I will to say thank you to Jane and Ping for all this process was very successful for the government, and obviously the process with the Ministry of Environment. Thank you so much for my presentation. So I am the moderator of this session, so I will keep talking a little bit more. I will to give the welcome to Andrea Corson. She is the director of the Sectoral and Urban Environmental Affairs in the Ministry of Environment. She is a lawyer from the Sergio Arboleda University here in Colombia with master's degree in environment, human, a socioeconomic dimension from the Complutense University, and one specialization in environmental consulting from the University of Lyon. She sent us a video in Spanish and with subtitle in English. So please, if you can put the video, please. Thank you.
Hola a todos, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Andrea Corso, directora de Asuntos Ambientales, Sectorial y Urbana del Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible de Colombia. Para nosotros es un gusto poder contarles, como cabeza de sector de la política ambiental del país, quienes lideramos la expedición de normas, estrategias y protocolos para la protección de los recursos naturales, todas las cosas que hemos venido haciendo para la gestión adecuada del Mercury. Desde 2013, con la expedición de ciertas normas, como es, por ejemplo, el control del mercurio en las actividades industriales del país, y posteriormente en 2018 con la ratificación del convenio de Minamata, hemos estado haciendo todos los esfuerzos posibles para poder gestionar y almacenar adecuadamente esta sustancia posterior a su prohibición. Han sido retos muy importantes los que hemos tenido como país, pero finalmente podemos ser una muestra del avance que hemos tenido y que hemos venido teniendo a través de los años. Ya hoy, una década desde este arduo trabajo del sector ambiental como cabeza, como les digo, de las estrategias ambientales de protección al medio ambiente, y sobre todo los retos tecnológicos, de logística y de conocimiento han sido tremendamente importantes para este país. De la mano con el Departamento de Estado de Estados Unidos, desde el 2019, se han venido haciendo todos los esfuerzos para la implementación y estructuración del piloto para la adecuada gestión y almacenamiento de este tipo de sustancias como lo es el mercurio. Hemos tenido muchísimos retos importantes a nivel territorial, de la mano con las entidades y las instituciones que están encargadas un poco de al encontrar la sustancia, y también en la incautación. Ha sido tremendamente importante poder hacer una sinergia adecuada en hacer un almacenamiento importante, adecuado, y que de verdad represente la disminución del impacto ambiental tanto al suelo como a las fuentes hídricas del país. Ustedes saben que Colombia cuenta con una gran cantidad de páramos, tenemos unas fuentes hídricas muy importantes, y el mal manejo o el manejo ilegal de esta sustancia tiene unos impactos ambientales muy agresivos a nuestros territorios. De aquí ha sido tan importante el acompañamiento y el apoyo que hemos tenido con la ONG Pure, que de la mano nuevamente con el Departamento de Estado, con la USEPA y con el Ministerio de Ambiente, hemos logrado instaurar este piloto en la zona nororiental de este país, puntualmente en el Departamento de Santander, en el municipio de Florida Blanca, al lado de la ciudad de Bucaramanga, donde ahí se está haciendo un almacenamiento adecuado de la sustancia que es encontrada. Es tan importante la incautación y recolectar esta sustancia que hemos tenido muchas solicitudes para que puedan almacenarse adecuadamente en este piloto, distintas incautaciones que se están encontrando a nivel país. Tenemos incautaciones de esta sustancia del mercurio en parques nacionales, en distintas zonas del país muy importantes, en ecosistemas estratégicos, y simplemente pasa, y en gran medida por la minería ilegal, donde se hacen socavones y el manejo de esta sustancia entra de manera ilegal al país y la usan tanto para sacar el material, para exportar, pues para maniobrarlo, exportarlo ilegalmente, y por supuesto los riesgos para la salud también de quienes están haciendo esta actividad ilícita. Entonces es muy importante para nosotros contarles el piloto que venimos desarrollando, la importancia que está teniendo para el país, la cantidad de mercurio que se está almacenando en esta zona del municipio de Florida Blanca, el avance tan importante de la mano con Pure que estamos teniendo, y que de verdad de la mano, tanto con la normatividad que hoy ya está cumpliendo una década cuando arrancamos, digamos, a instrumentarla con la ratificación del convenio de Minamata, y asimismo con el piloto, lo que en realidad estamos logrando que esta sustancia no se esté decantando y no esté llegando al medio ambiente de nuestro país.
Okay, thank you too. He is teacher of many several institutions here in Colombia. So, Daniel, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I am very honored to be here. Alfonso from Peter and Jane from the U.S. State Department, thank you very much for the invitation. You have been some of our strategic allies whom we have joined to promote a national strategy and develop an effective policy of zero tolerance to the use of mercury. I would also like to thank the Minamata Secretariat for opening this site event of a successful experience in Colombia. surrounding mercury problems around the world. My name is Daniel Gomez, and I have worked at the Attorney Inspector General Office since 2013, and it would be nice to share my first footsteps there with you. When I took office, one of the rules that by coincidence was issued was a law 1658 of 2013, in which the requirements and incentives for the reductions and elimination of mercury were established. For many years, I tried to follow up on the complaints with this regulation, but within the government was not given much importance. It wasn't until 2022 that this regulation began to display importance in Colombia, when Attorney General Margarita Cabello and Gustavo Guerrero instructed us to work on the triple planetary crisis: climate change, pollution, and biodiversity loss. Based on this instruction from the Attorney General, we are working in every corner of Colombia, identifying environmental problems, generating alerts, and above all, promoting solutions, not only to protect the environment, but also to defend the rights of communities at the local level. All this work has not only been based on the assumption or prioritizing environmental issues, but also on the idea that capacities must be built and strengthened in the country's municipalities, and that to achieve this
Sorry,
institution.
Daniel, the presentation is not moving. We see the first slide. Okay.
Oh, perfect. Sorry. And that to achieve this institution must work hand in hand with citizens. This background necessarily leads me to share with you an anecdote has that has become a milestone in this movement in Colombia, which we want to promote today to help face mercury pollution in the world. Last year, the 80 years old overseer Ramiro Vasquez began to file complaints regarding mercury contamination in the aqueduct of metropolitan area of Bucaramanga in the department of Santander. Unfortunately, the authorities did not respond efficiently to the citizens' call. In mid-2022, the Attorney General's office became aware of these complaints. It immediately contacted Mr. Vasquez. Following this first contact, the Attorney General's office generated an environmental alert, initiated a disciplinary investigation against the mayor of the municipality of California, issued a statement of objection for default in her duties, and convened on a regional roundtable in order to articulate all entities to address this situation. By this means, 14 institutions committed to handle this problem with concrete actions such as monitoring plant water sources and the opening of criminal investigations. Thanks to, thanks to this hard work, we realized that the levels of the mercury contamination in the water that reaches the community of Bucaramanga have remained constant, in occasions still exceeding up to 160 times the legal limit. Therefore, it is necessary to adopt a zero tolerance attitude towards the use of mercury. It is not a matter of reducing it, but of putting an end to the practices that use this metal, which in our country are mainly due to illegal mining. Recently, artisanal and ancestral mining are being confused with illegal mining. Therefore, by defending the first two, government is assuming a permissive position around illegal mining as well. I must be made clear that ancestral mining is not the one that uses mercury in extractive process and that uses heavy machinery such as dredges. Although all this work originated on the concert of our overseer in Santander, the same experience helped us identify a much more complex scenario. Mercury contamination is a risk for many of water sources in various regions of the country. In the department of Chocó, Antioquia, Caldas, Córdoba, Cauca, Valle del Cauca, and Nariño, the situation is also where reason as mercury contamination is becoming a generalized phenomenon throughout the country. And next, please. Next. Thank you. The United Nations Environment Program has even already said that Colombia is the largest per capita mercury emitter in the world and the third most mercury pollution country in the entire planet. We sincerely thank Peter, the organization which today invite us to this event in the framework of the COP5 for their persistent cooperation and interest in this fundamental commitment that the Attorney General's office has in this regard and which has led them to identify more than 83 sites as potentially contaminated with mercury in the country. I must admit I am concerned about the lack of institutional engagement in this matter, despite having a broad regulatory framework that includes the Minamata International Conventions. The current figures show that the efforts have been ineffective. In Colombia, according to Law 1658 of 2013, the use of mercury in mining by now should have already been 100% eradicated. It must have been eliminated from all types of activities. That eradication have already achieved in legal mining in 2018. Hence, the importance of attacking illegal mining. For this reason, in January of this year, we called on all relevant national institutions to make urgent decisions in search of a national and territorial strategy for the control and monitoring of mercury contamination in the country. The Attorney General's office created the National Roundtable for the Control of Mercury, through which 65 organizations made up of national and local entities, academia, environmental observers, and international organizations, including the US State Department and Peter, who are our great allies to articulate the control and monitoring of mercury contamination and its socio-environmental impact so that through social dialogue, effective solutions are built to ensure the protection of the environment and communities. Based on the commitment made at the roundtable, the municipalities of Beta, Suratán, California, and Santander delivered the characterization of informal miners. The local environmental authority of Santander built and executed the monitoring plan for the Suratá River, and a mercury recovery site was installed for informal miners in the municipality of California. And what gathered us here today is that thanks to that roundtable, we achieved the coordination for the installation of a temporary storage unit for mercury sinks from illegal miners in the laboratory of Environmental Authority of the city of Bucaramanga. After no entity wanted to take responsibility, we got the local Environmental Authority of Santander to understand the need. Today, different environmental authorities in the country that suffer from this problem are asking for our help in order to obtain financing for the installation of a temporary storage unit for Mercury. To close this presentation, I would like to highlight two key messages from the Colombia Attorney General. First, I would like to call on the different entities of the Colombia government to be strict when facing illegal mining that affect ecosystem and water sources and that put health of Colombia at risk. We cannot, as a public servant, consent to illegal activities when our constitutional and legal duty is to punish this type of conduct, as well as to guarantee compensations for the damage it causes. It is responsibility of the state to repair the damage derived from the environmental affectations, the well-known environmental liabilities. We have said it clearly in the face of the course in the deforestation and the development of illicit crop in the country. If there are omissions from competent authorities, they will be investigated. We will impose legal sanctions and demand the reparation of the damages caused. And the second message is that it is essential that the national government complies with the Minamata Agreement and with all mining and environmental regulation, as well as with the formalization of instruments that already exist and regulated for this activity. Let us remember that the objective of mining formalization in Colombia is that mining community that for years have been working on a small scale were under the protection of a title and in condition of technical labor, environmental and business formalities. It is for reason that I urge all institutions and especially their decision makers according to their competencies to really comply with the Minamata Agreement and the commitment established in the National Roundtable for Mercury Control in the roadmap that will be discussed and defined here. I conclude then that I recognize that the solution to this problem is complex and requires interinstitutional articulation. Therefore, today I invite to identify together the challenges for face as a planet to confront this scourge, working on a joint roadmap. This Colombia Attorney General's office is an ally in the fight against the use of mercury. We will not rest until the practices that contaminate our water sources and poison our planet are eradicated. Thanks. Here, this is my email. If there is anything that you need, thank you very much. Back to you, Alfonso.
Thank you so much for your presentation and your works. As you see, what is the commitment of the different agencies of Colombia in this process? I want to thank all the agencies, but I also thank especially in that. We have only 4 minutes to finalize this intervention, so I will give the floor to Victor Alfonso Rey. He's the diplomatic officer of the Ministry of Affairs of Colombia. He is the focal point at the moment. He will attend the Minamata Convention in Geneva and next COP5. So, Victor, the floor is yours. Victor?
Can you hear me well, Alfonso?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much to the previous speakers for their comments, and also thank you for the invitation to give some closing remarks. On behalf of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Colombia, I would like to avail myself of this opportunity to extend my deepest gratitude to all the participants of this side event, and in particular to the government of the United States of America and Pure Earth Colombia, who, after signing a technical cooperation agreement for promoting the recovery and responsibly management of mercury in contaminated tailings from artisanal gold mining in our country, succeeded in delivering the first temporary mercury storage unit in Colombia. We also highlight the invaluable work of the Attorney General's Office in the articulation of knowledge and technology transfer processes and the essential technical support of the Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development and the local environmental authority of Bucaramanga in the execution and implementation of this project. This pilot, dear participants, is undoubtedly a clear example of a highly coordinated institutional work of months between several entities at national and regional level. Despite the different technical challenges presented, today it becomes a big step forward in Colombia. Likewise, and once again, it is very significant example of the effective cooperation of a strategic partner such as the government of the United States of America, which has supported different initiatives to prevent the use of mercury and mitigate its harmful impacts in especially vulnerable areas of the country. Santander is the first region in Colombia where mercury storage is available. Therefore, this sustainable model of capturing mercury outlines a clear roadmap that might be replicated by more cities in the country. As mentioned by you, Francisco, the use of mercury is not only a Colombian problem, but a regional problem. Hence, it is an important opportunity for Colombia to socialize this project within the framework of international fora, such as the Andean Community of Nations, where sensitive issues of the environmental agenda are addressed, such as the fight against mercury, which is faced by different countries in the region. Additionally, as a part of the national compliance reports that are periodically submitted to the Secretariat of the Minamata Convention, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs will include the first temporary mercury storage unit as an example of good practices in the responsible management of contaminated tailings from artisanal gold mining. These reports are of a public nature and can be freely consulted, so they will serve as a guide for other observers and state parties in the implementation of the Minamata Convention. Mercury is a highly harmful pollutant for ecosystems and human beings, and its long-term exposure increases the chances of developing multiple diseases, especially in children and women. Therefore, for the government of Colombia, minimizing the environmental and health risks caused by mercury and safely managing its final disposal is one of the highest environmental priorities. Once again, mercury storage unit in Colombia, a tangible reality. We look forward to working actively in the implementation of these and new related projects. Thank you very much. Francisco, I think that's all because we ran out of time, and back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. The time is gone. Thank you so much for all the participant speakers, Jane, Daniel, Andrea, and Victor, and all the team and the people that assisting. And any question at email would be great. Thank you so much for your assistance.
Thank you very much. And if there are no more questions, we can now dismiss the event. We have more events coming in the next few days, and you're more than welcome to participate in all of them. Thank you.